Legend has it there's a little ghost who wanted to stick around after Halloween because she wasn't done having fun with all the living people yet. They say she's the friendliest ghost you'll ever meet, with round, rosy cheeks, big curious eyes, and the cutest smile you ever did see. Hi, I'm Hatty, and welcome to Hatty Haunts. I thought since this is the first video on this channel and we're celebrating the launch, why not bring the little ghost on my logo to life? So, let's get cracking! To make this sweet little clay ghost, you will need some air dry clay. I'm using DAS, but any air dry clay will do. A craft knife, some tin foil, I'll explain this later, something to roll out your clay with. I'm using this very correct tool for the job, a bottle of reed diffuser oil, some water, and some paper towel to rub your grubby little clay fingers on. To start with, we're going to rip off a roughly this much amount of tin foil and start scrunching it up and shaping it into a sort of fat, short sausage shape. Say that 10 times fast. We're using this foil to make a body shape for the ghost, which we will then lay the clay over. This will give the ghost a good solid body and support it while it dries so it doesn't collapse. This also means that the ghost can be hollow on the inside so it won't weigh a ton and use up loads of unnecessary clay that we could use for another project down the line. We're going to shape this foil with a bit of a tail at the back so the ghost will look like it's on the move, like in my logo. We're going to work it until it's about the right shape and can stand up by itself so it can support the clay that will go over the top. Now that's all the right shape and standing up nicely by itself, we're going to open up our fresh new clay packet. Ooh! And rip off a clump that's roughly the same size as the foil shape we've made. And then we'll smush it into a ball, squash the ball, and smooth out the ball with our, rolling pin. A little tip here is to use a little bit of water to help smooth the clay out because it stops it sticking to everything. Actually, I'm finding that using my hands is a bit easier for smushing this out, but I'll use my rolling pin to give it a final smooth out just to make sure it's roughly an even thickness. You want to roll your clay out until it's about the thickness of a pound coin, and then we're going to roll our ghost body around on top of the clay to mark out where the bottom of the ghost will be. Now get your lovely fresh knife and immediately ruin it by covering it in clay and chop a circle around the bottom marks you've made. Keep this excess clay because we can use this for the face details in a minute. This always reminds me so much of Snow White making the pie. Then we're going to peel our lovely clay circle off the mat and drape it over the foil and, take that cat hair off it. But a handy little tip here is to put the clay slightly off-centre so the front is a bit shorter and you can get some really nice folds and movement at the back of the ghost. Then it's just a case of actually making these folds by gently manipulating the clay into the shape you want and smoothing it out with a bit of water. Here I'm reinforcing the folds at the top by pushing the clay in and creating more of a ridge so it looks a bit more natural and less like very thick material. I've opted to make the front of my ghost wrinkle free so it looks like she's really on the move, but you can always place the clay centrally over your foil and put folds all around to make a static ghost. And I'm pretty happy with that shape. So back to those offcuts of clay, and we're going to pull off just a tiny little bit to make the eyes here, split it in two so it's even tinier and roll it into two little balls. Then plop plop, smush, you've got two little eyes. Although this one's a little too smushed, but that's okay, we can fix it. We'll just take it off, smooth out the bit underneath and pop it back on. Perfect. Now we're going to make the cheeks. Make a slightly larger set of clay balls and pop them on below the eyes and slightly out to the side. Now for the tiny smile, we're going to make a super thin sausage and use only a tiny bit of it. I mean really less than you think. And carefully pop it between the cheeks. Then a quick final smooth over with water and then we need to leave her to dry. For ages. Honestly, this took 30 hours. I ended up putting her on top of my dehumidifier because it was taking so long and there was some nice warm air coming up from it. Right, now when she's finally dry, we need to take out that foil ball so she can stand up on her own. We'll have an independent lady. This was harder than I thought it would be. Wiggle, 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 pull! Finally. And now we paint. Starting with a generic acrylic white paint, we're going to plop it into our palette and thin it down with water until it's roughly this thickness. Then we're just going to slap it on all over, wait for it to dry and do another coat or two. You can also paint the inside if you want to, but this isn't necessary because we're going to seal it with varnish later anyway. Next is pretty pink for the cheeks. You can use red if you want for an even rosier cheeked ghost. However, I'm going to be using Fulgrim Pink from Citadel, but ugh, this will need a bit of fixing first. Mix, mix, mix with water, and that looks usable, if you avoid the chunks, that is. Cute and cute. Now for the eyes and mouth, and we've saved these for last because we're going to use black, and we don't want to accidentally mix black into the pink cheeks. And now to add a final little bit of extra adorableness, we're going to add a little white dot in the top corner of each eye so our ghosty friend looks a little more, well, not alive, but I guess bright-eyed. I'm also going to put a cheeky little signature on the inside for whoever gets this little ghosty in my channel launch giveaway. Head over to my Instagram if you want the details. Okay, that's the painting done. Now for one final step, we're just going to seal everything in with varnish. I'm using this Galleria satin varnish, which is going to leave a little bit of a shine on the finish, but you can use matte varnish if you don't want that shine. We're going to do a couple of coats of this, and make sure you don't leave any bits uncovered because air dry clay will break down over time if it's not sealed properly, and we want our friend around for a very long time. Make sure to leave it to dry fully between coats as well. A couple of hours will do fine, or you can just blast it with a hairdryer. And she's finished! Let me know what you think of our new little buddy in the comments, and also let me know what you'd like to see me cover on this channel. If you've enjoyed my first video, it'd be really helpful if you hit subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you next time. And until then, happy haunting!